it is harmful to a spouse. It doesn't matter if it was under the influence. It doesn't matter if they have trauma. It doesn't matter any of that. The words are still hurtful and it is still harmful. So it's not the intention that matters. It's the fact that it does happen, that it does hurt you. That's what matters. That's why I didn't, care about addiction whenever you were going through stuff or like focus on that. It was all about your behaviors. Are you treating me a certain way? Okay, well, that's not acceptable. I don't care if you meant it or not. Like, it is still impacting me.
Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
You ever heard the saying that a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts? You ever gotten into an argument with someone and they've said some terrible things under the influence? Hey, maybe even you've done this. And then after the fact, as you're reconciling, they say, you can't believe me when I'm drunk. And I didn't mean that. And there's some little part of you that wonders, what if they did? Well, we're here as a couple that's been through this. I am the guy that has said a lot of this stuff. Paige is the person that took a lot of this stuff. After the fact, nearly 13 years later, we've got views and ideas on this that may fly in the face of some of the things that you've heard about alcoholism, the disease of the mind, and everything else. Because believe it or not, some of the stuff does come from your ideas and your beliefs and your underlying attitudes. And not everything that we say whenever we're drunk comes out of thin air. We're going to talk about that today. This episode involves nuance, which means that it will never go viral. And I encourage you guys to listen to this thing in its entirety because there are no absolutes in this game. But there are some things that will lead you to what we believe is more of the truth than not. Okay, so not every single thing that someone says is the absolute truth, but a lot of it is, believe it or not. As we're going to get into, speaking from my own experience, Paige's, and the experience of many, many other people that have been through it.
It may not necessarily be true, but it will be their thoughts. We'll talk about that.
Absolutely. Ooh, that's fun. I like that. Hey, first things first, thank you to Soberlink, the sponsor of today's show. If you don't know what it is by now, it is the world's greatest accountability device that happens to be disguised as a breathalyzer. If you're somebody like me and you're trying to rebuild trust in your relationship and your words have basically lost meaning because you've made promises and you've broken them, and you've been a chronic relapser and you've struggled with staying sober, Soberlink could be the thing that changes the game for you this time. Listen, this is a device that you set up people in a network and they get notified every time you use it. And every one of those negative tests are a drop back into that bucket of truth, that bucket of trust, I mean. Remember, trust is lost in buckets and it's rebuilt in droplets. It takes a long time to rebuild trust. It's small behaviors, changes over a very long period of time that lead people to trust us again. When your words have lost meaning, you might be at the point where you're going to need some outside help to do this. A third party like Soberlink that is interested in nothing other than providing accurate, real data. So every time you blow negative, they get an alert that says, hey, they're doing the deal. And that's important because it does two things. One, it provides you accountability. If you are struggling in your private moments with, hey, maybe I could get away with it. Maybe I can stop at the liquor store or the bar on the way home. This is going to deter you from doing it because you know you've got a test coming up. Two, it's going to put people in your corner that are rooting for you. Once you come out with it that you're serious and you're going to get this device, people get in your corner. They want to support you. They want to help you through it. And it's really great to have people in your corner that are cheering you on. But really what it is, it's a gift that you give your spouse or partner. Guys, they're tired of looking for bottles. They're tired of arguing about it. They're tired of being gaslit when you've obviously been drinking and you're lying that you haven't been. No more of that. No more of that. It's the gift that you give them. It's the gift of visibility. It's the gift of peace. And it's the gift of vulnerability. Very few things can provide this. I had to do this the old-fashioned way. Very small changes over a long period of time, and it took forever. Soberlink can actually help expedite that. And since you're an awesome listener of this show, it has never been easier or cheaper to get into one. No more device purchases. You can rent these things for as little as $19 a month when you sign up for a 1-year plan. And go to our link, soberlink.com/wheels, where you will enter your email address and they will send you a $100 Visa gift card that you can use toward that monthly plan cost or toward your Amazon purchases or toward Tufo merch. Whatever you want to use it toward, they're going to give that to you because you're a listener of this show. So if you're interested in something like Soberlink, we can't recommend it enough for people that are really trying to rebuild. It's soberlink.com/wheels. While you're on the internet, head over to tufo.com to check out everything that we offer. We've got an online program we'll talk about a little bit later. We've got merch and some more in the works. We've got stickers, we've got hats, we've got t-shirts, sweatshirts, all kinds of stuff. You're going to say something?
No.
Okay. She was looking at me in the corner of my eye. I saw it. But we've got a free Facebook community as well. This is a community of listeners only. They come together and they talk about what's going on in their lives. You can post anonymously in that group. It's a place where you can find support like nowhere else. We have not found anything else that is like our group. There are a lot of things that are sort of adjacent, but no one is seen in quite the same way as when you join our community. It is truly a special place. It's one of the last pure places on the internet, in my belief. There are very few of them. We are one of them. And since you're a listener, you get that totally free. We've also got a free Discord channel where you can connect with people in your region if you wanted to get together, get coffee, meet up, whatever you guys like to do, or if you just need someone to talk to in the middle of the night. We've got listeners all over the world, and we've got international channels in our Discord as well. You can find out more about that in our Facebook community. What else am I missing on Twofold? Oh, Recovery Rocks.
Yay!
This is a really cool gift that you can give your spouse or partner. It's got our logo on the front, and on the back it says, "Thank you for being my rock." The journey of a spouse or partner through recovery is very rarely acknowledged in the way that we think it should be. Let's say that even if you're a member of like an Al-Anon group, you can get some great support there, but you're given a coin from your sponsor or from the group. It's a bit different than being acknowledged by your spouse. So this would be me giving Paige the rock, saying, "Thank you. Thank you for being my rock. Thank you for everything that you've sacrificed in order for me to get to where I am today." It's a really cool way to acknowledge your spouse or partner's sacrifices that they've made on your recovery journey. It's a rather lonely journey as a spouse or partner. So,
or if there's a special wheelie in the community that has been there for you through thick and thin, this is a great opportunity to show them how you appreciate them as well.
Yeah, and you can support the show in doing that. If you want to support the show in other ways, we've got a link in our bio here, or our show description. Also in our bios, there's a link there called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy us a cup of coffee. You can set that up monthly. You can set that up as a one-time, as much or as little as you like. Whatever, to help us with the cost of the show. And it's not required by any means. We will do this regardless. We love you anyway. We appreciate everyone that's donated. Truly, every dollar we get goes straight back into the show. We're not taking this and going on vacation. Everything we've ever received from the show goes right back into the show's expenses, its cost, and in reinvestment to make the content that you enjoy better than ever. So we're going to continue to do that. We appreciate your support, truly. But if you don't, we love you all the same. Doesn't matter to us.
We know that these conversations are necessary, and especially recently with a lot of heat that we've been receiving. But we do feel like these conversations are super necessary, and we're going to continue going no matter, like as much as we can, obviously.
Yeah.
Depending on our lives.
Today's episode, I did a reel on this recently.
Did you?
Yeah, I actually did. I did a reel on this recently about whether or not people mean the things they say whenever they're under the influence. I got a lot of feedback on it. We had a reel go viral on Facebook, I think. I thought TikTok comment sections were wild. Mm-hmm. Facebook is the craziest place on the internet. That place is the Wild West.
Yeah, we've learned a lot over the past month or so because we grew pretty quickly on there. And like I said, it's made me realize how important these conversations are and how necessary they are.
There was a lot of opinions about this one way or the other about whether or not someone's, when they're speaking drunk, whether they mean it or not. My opinion, you have to go check the reel out to get my opinion on that, or let's finish this episode.
I was going to say, aren't you going to talk about it here? I don't remember you doing a reel on this. Did you do an episode on this?
This was like last week. It wasn't an episode. I was answering some listener questions that we had in DMs.
Oh.
I've been doing that for reels.
Okay.
Answering questions. I've done a few of these lately.
Was I out of town or something?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't look at all of your reels, but I don't remember you doing anything on this.
And okay, so my take was sometimes people do. Sometimes they mean those things. Sometimes they don't. But I think it's irrelevant because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, can I live with it?
Right. It's about the impact.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go through this. Let's just go through this. So I see this.
Hang on.
What?
Pause.
What?
What is on your hand?
It's a pickle Band-Aid.
Show that to the camera.
It's a pickle.
Look at this, guys. That's a Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's not on there very well, but I scratched my thumb underneath my cabinet and it took off a chunk of skin. This happened last week and my scab came off for the second time.
Peeling it off?
No, I was putting on my socks or my shoes.
That's what I meant, like knocking it off.
It was an accident. I don't pick at it.
Yeah.
But it was bleeding really, really bad.
It sucks when you get cuts and things like that in places that seem to get hit. It's almost like hangnails. Every time you put your hand in your pocket for the next month, it just reopens the wound.
A couple episodes ago, I had a hangnail infected on the show,
true.
so that's interesting.
Oozing at the end, but it's like those little spots in your mouth after you bite your cheek. You're guaranteed to bite it 6 more times in the next 48 hours.
I'm falling apart with all of these things. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So I have a pickle Band-Aid. So this is going back to the topic. I see it in the community a lot, and I've had people ask the question before, like, is it true what they say? And we're gonna kind of dig into it because it's not necessarily true what they say, but those feelings don't come out of nowhere. Those thoughts don't come out of nowhere. It could be from their values. It could be from something they've learned along the way. Like they will say something that you feel, oh my gosh, that was really painful. That hurt me. But was that true? Did they really mean it? I mean, what alcohol does or what addiction, all the substances do is like it can influence you. Like it can help you drop the inhibitions. It makes you have the courage.
It lowers
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It drops it. And then, but the actual thoughts, the resentments, the beliefs, whatever, they're already there. They're in there. They're already in your brain. The substance just, again, amplifies it. So I just kind of wanted to go through a couple of things, maybe some examples that people hear from their drunk or addicted spouse that's on something else.
This is probably a PG list too.
Oh yeah, this is a PG list. I mean, I'm sure that you all could come up with a lot, but I'm sure many of you can relate to this as well. Like you're the reason I drink. Maybe I never should have married you.
Oh yeah.
You don't really love me. You make me feel like nothing I do is good enough. He used to say that to me.
All the time.
If it wasn't for you, I'd be so much more successful. Like maybe they feel like you're holding them back, or I could do better than you anytime I want. I don't owe you anything. You should be grateful I'm even here. I love you more than anything, but I can't stand you. You're all I have and I hate you for it. These are just some examples that might be happening that they might say whenever they're drunk or whatnot.
And this just tipped the iceberg. Sometimes you'll get some wild ass accusations as well.
Yes. Like if they are accusing you of cheating.
Oh, that's where I was going. Yeah. Like you've been sleeping with my brother.
Right.
Like random shit. You're like, what?
Right. And we can say that these are distorted thoughts. Okay. Like it's not that they're true, but they may actually feel this way.
Yeah.
That those beliefs don't come from anywhere. And I know that's really challenging for a lot of people to understand because you want to say, oh, it's the disease. Oh, it's the alcoholism. But a lot of the times when this stuff is being said, like that's their values. Like that's what they believe from before they even became an alcoholic or addict.
I can just speak for personally here is that there was always a sliver of truth.
Yes.
There was always a sliver of truth to this.
Of how you felt.
Yeah.
Not what it means. Like whenever you say you make me drink or you cause me to drink, okay, you're not causing them to drink, but you truly do feel
in some way
that they are causing you to drink.
There was a sliver of it. I'm not saying all of it, but there's a sliver of it.
No, of course. I could say the same thing when I would drink and I would be angry about something. It's like, oh yeah, this is not just coming out of thin air. Okay. This is not just being under the influence and me just saying random shit. Like obviously there's something beneath me that actually feels this way.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about, and you can say that with anybody if you've been drunk before, which I'm sure many of us have.
I would venture to say that like, it's sad to me that we have to ask the question because I would imagine that most people listening to the show, if not everyone, has been intoxicated at some point in their life and they've said something rather ridiculous. And think back to that moment. Doesn't matter what you said. Remember to how you felt whenever you said it. There was some part of you where that came from, right? It started somewhere. The alcohol, obviously, we'll get into some of the chemistry going on inside the brain whenever you're hammered. But that usually starts somewhere, right? There's some little part of you, even if it's driven by pity and like this poor me idea, or if it's exaggerated in emotion, there's still something underneath it all. Once you distill it down, there's something there. It started somewhere with a belief or an idea or an attitude. Regardless, something internal that is not simply, it did not appear simply because of alcohol. It didn't start there. Alcohol was not the origination of this thought or this belief or this idea. It made it easier for it to come out. Exactly.
It makes it easier for it to come out because you feel like they say it's liquid courage.
Yeah.
And so you're going to say something, whatever is on your mind. Mm-hmm. It's not just, the alcohol didn't make them think that way is what we're basically saying.
Right.
So I want to go into the neuroscience because this is like your area of expertise.
I'm not a neuroscientist, by the way.
I didn't say you were, but you love
I'm interested in it.
You're very good at talking about it. And I think that this would be a great opportunity for you to speak on how, what alcohol does to the certain part of your brain.
So the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that's responsible for judgment and self-control and social filters, all these things. It's like the executive functioning of the brain. And alcohol reduces activity in this part of the brain. So that's why it's easier to say dumb things. It's why it's also easier to like talk to girls. It's why it's easier to be in social situations, because it does lower your inhibitions, because a lot of those things that filter out in your prefrontal cortex, it's the area has been relaxed, right? And then I think from that is where a lot of this stuff stems. Like once the prefrontal cortex has been relaxed and shut down, a lot of those things just flow more freely. So this is what's happening at the brain level whenever we consume alcohol. More than that, memory and emotional regulation, the parts of your brain that are responsible for, it's like your brain's braking system, right? The things that keep you from like lashing out or like yelling or blurting out or exaggerating, all these parts of the brain are also affected, right? So these things are, your inhibitions are lower. This is what we mean when we say your inhibitions are lower. This is what's actually happening inside the brain. These parts of the brain, they're responsible for like those throttling mechanisms that keep you from saying ridiculous things. Like, have you ever said something inappropriate to the opposite sex whenever you've been drunk? Like, this is likely wise because this part of your brain has been affected. And I think that when it comes to truth and distortion as well, alcohol can make this sort of fuzzy in some ways. Like, it increases your impulsivity. So you're more impulsive whenever you're drunk. We know this about drunk people. If you've been drunk, I don't have to convince you that that's true. Likely you've done some dumb shit when you're drunk, just like I have. Like, we all have done something stupid when we're drunk. It makes for some of the best internet videos, and the content and everything. What are you laughing about? You got a specific story you want to talk about?
No.
No. But it can make things seem exaggerated or incoherent at times. But I think what's important to recognize is that these are rarely new thoughts. It makes all these things possible, but it is not responsible for the actual underlying beliefs or ideas. Let's say that I'm into a coworker. This is not a true story. I'm just an example. I'm not into any coworkers. Okay. Let's say that you're into a coworker and you're at a work event. This happens to a lot of people, and you get a few drinks in and you get a little too touchy. You get a little too out there with your words, like, you're cute. I've always been into you. I remember when you started here, and you make an ass of yourself. Some of that stuff's true. Like, you actually do feel that way. You do. But on a normal day without alcohol, that shit's never coming out of your mouth.
Because you have a filter.
Right.
You're able to regulate yourself.
Your executive functioning is working properly, right? So you don't have this disinhibition effect. You don't have issues with your emotional regulation because your brain is operating the way it's supposed to. But also, I think when it comes to things like resentment and some of the uglier stuff that comes out of people's mouth, like, I wish I never would have had kids with you because now I'm stuck, or I never should have married you, or I'm trying to think of, I don't say hateful shit really. So I'm trying to think of what hateful shit we've heard from other people. There's just been there's nasty things, like, I wish I would have divorced you, any number of things that people will say whenever they're drunk.
Or you're just controlling, or you're just a controlling bitch, things like that.
Right. So
demeaning.
If your prefrontal cortex is the filter is removed by alcohol, but the data, the actual information where the stuff comes from was there always. It was always there. In someone's quiet moments, they are generally saying these things or thinking these things, or maybe it's something they've been stewing over for a very long time. The stuff just didn't appear is what I'm saying. The stuff is generally there. And I've had more of these moments than I can possibly count. I remember getting super worked up and angry and upset and like lashing out at either you, or it could have been like my parents or really anyone who was in my way at that time. It was so easy to let that stuff fly in those moments. Sober me isn't going to say that kind of stuff because I'm like, I don't want to have to fight. That's a hurtful thing to say. But I had the thoughts. They were still in there, right? I would still in my private moments think to myself, like I believe that you were controlling. I believe that you were on my ass too much. I believe that you were just like, if I could just
nag.
If I would just behave better, Paige's world would just be perfect. And Paige has her own problems. And I would think about this kind of stuff. And then you get sidetracked with life and it kind of disappears. But when you're drunk, this shit just comes off your tongue, man. But the stuff, the thoughts, the beliefs, the ideas were always there.
They were there.
Stuff was always inside of me. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was actually good education on neuroscience.
I don't know if it's that, but I think that if it's anything, it's common sense, y'all. You've been drunk, you've said shit, and it didn't come from nowhere.
No. And we could sit there and say all day long, like, oh, I didn't mean it, and it wasn't my intention. But it was said, and you do deep down have those feelings, obviously somewhere, and we're just denying it,
Yeah.
And we want to avoid that because we want to blame the substance, which we don't blame the substance here. We don't blame the disease. We don't blame any of that on that. It's actually a values issue and a behavioral problem.
Addiction, education, substance education provides context, not excuses.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So I have been really digging into Lundy Bancroft lately. Matt read Why Does He Do That? It's one of our number one books recommended for our listeners to read. He read it a couple years ago, and it was very eye-opening for him. And then I read it after him, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So I've just been digging into it a lot more because it aligns with our values a lot. A lot of the information aligns with the way that we feel and the way that our program is set up. And we didn't even know that he had this program and he was doing this. So he has a program for abusive men.
An abuser program.
Yes, it's an abuser program.
Yeah,
But
rehabilitation
he
program.
has spoken to a lot of spouses, and that's where a lot of information has come from. But anyway, in one of his books that I read recently, he says substances didn't put the thinking inside him. It was already there. So the alcohol didn't plant cruelty, misogyny, entitlement, or disdain in him. It just pulled the curtain back.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we were just saying. But like if you have a spouse who weaponizes vows, who is pretty misogynistic, who is somewhat controlling, it is not the substance. This would be their values. This is deeply rooted within them. I believe they're really dangerous, in my opinion. Like those are the types of people that really need to be in an extra program besides a substance removal program. That's a whole other episode that I'm going to go down at some point. But it's important to recognize that it's not the substance and that it's just a values thing. It's a problem within the way they think. It's literally their distorted thought process. But whenever they drink or they use, it amplifies the behavior. Again, behaviors over substances. That's what we discuss here almost every week. But because whenever they start saying these cruel things, like we hear all the time where people are like, oh, they're so great when they're sober. Oh, but when they drink, they say some really hurtful things. Well, that's because they don't have a filter. That's because they don't have that. Whenever they're sober, they're still the same person, right? We don't separate the people. Like you need to look at the bigger picture of like, yeah, they're kind when they're sober, but they're hateful when they're on substances. Well, the reality is they're in between that.
They're the average of those two people.
Yes, they are. So you can't just look at the good. If we're just looking at the good or the sober person, you're turning a blind eye to the reality of the situation. Whenever they start saying these things, whenever they've been using, it's just revealing the attitudes and beliefs that exist when they are sober. They just, again, there's no filter. I recently put a reel together. I think it was a reel or something about how addiction and abuse are separate issues. And we got a lot of hate for that one.
Big time.
And I was kind of floored, to be honest with you, where I was like, I didn't know that this was going to be such a controversial take to where they're separate issues, because a lot of people will blame the addiction on the abusive behaviors when they are just two separate problems, two separate issues, because they may stop using, they may stop drinking, they may stop doing all the things, but he has to actually change the underlying thinking and not just remove the substance. Because if you don't change the underlying thinking or the values, the harm is still going to continue. But yeah.
Yeah, when people get sober, we're convinced that you get that wonderful version of them. And if you're a problem drinker, someone that uses alcohol to cope with any number of underlying issues, removing that substance more than anything, I think, is going to make you miserable. And these things will come to light in different ways. They're going to show up in different ways. I know for me, there was a lot of stuff underneath the reasons that I drank, the reasons that I use drugs, but the beliefs and the thinking and the attitudes about life in general, about power dynamics within a marriage, about my role in the world with other people, about the fact that I believe that I was more important than other people. That stuff had nothing to do with the drinking. That stuff was always there. It was always there. And my recovery has truly been uncovering that stuff. Yes. That's what recovery really is about. And that's what change is really about. And I know why we do this. We do this because it gives people hope. Because I do believe that if you are going to fix that stuff, you do have to rid yourself of that substance if it's a problem. If you're ever going to really be able to process and change this stuff, you're going to have to do it with sober mind and body, period. I would challenge you to be able to do it with a substance. If you were able to, my conclusion would be that you don't have like a real substance problem. You would just be a normal person with a normal relationship with substances, because we can all change. We all have the capacity to do that. But whenever you're drunk or high all the time, you're not going to be able to really work through this stuff. You're just not going to be able to work through this stuff.
We recently got a DM asking that question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, can you work on the behaviors if you're not sober?
No, probably not.
No, I don't believe so either. Because you can't regulate your emotions. You have to learn to regulate your emotions.
Man, I feel like the wool has been pulled over the eyes of so many people for so very long. And I'm not sure like who to even blame for this, because it's almost like it's sort of inherent in the idea of rebuilding through addiction. It's not like counselors are responsible or treatment centers are responsible or Al-Anon's responsible. Maybe in some ways all of these people contribute, but I think it's just the overall narrative. Maybe part of it's through movies and books and things like that. And it's just part of the character arc of someone that recovers from alcoholism. Rarely do we see the inner work that goes into that. And rarely do we see the actual behavioral changes that are required in order to be a different person at some point in your life and become different. You know, oftentimes we see this stuff and it's sort of wrapped up into these nice movies or shows that are 30 minutes to an hour long. And, or maybe it's a 30-second clip or something like that. And the assumption becomes that we become better people when we stop using or drinking. And that's just not true. It's just not true. I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails I could send you, which I wouldn't. I appreciate and respect people's privacy.
Yeah.
But where people are saying the exact opposite, which is they've got sober and now it's fucking worse. And like, I don't know what to do. Like what now? Like I just concluded that once we got rid of this, things would be great and they would respect me and they would be more of an equal participant in our relationship. They would care about their kids. They would do all this shit and they don't. And I want to make it known too, and this isn't patting myself on the back at all. I think it just supports what I'm saying, is that when I was getting sober, I was more worried about that stuff than the substance itself. I was more worried about being a better man. I wanted to be a good husband. I wanted to settle down and get boring in life. I wanted to just raise kids. I wanted to do things the right way. I wanted to be involved in our community. I wanted to be a good man. I wasn't really thinking like, I just have to stop using drugs. I knew that was going to have to be part of it, but I was worried about the behavioral stuff. And that's what I've always concerned myself with.
So important.
And when I started to focus on that stuff, what's interesting is sort of like a bait and switch, is that I was no longer interested in using substances because they played no part in that sort of life that I'm trying to build. And so it was almost like in the beginning, we want to stop using, but my deal was that I just wanted to be a better person. And the result of wanting to be a better person and living those ways left me with the conclusion that like alcohol, drugs have no place in my life anymore. That's the way it worked for me. I sought out to be a better person. The result was you no longer really think about drugs or alcohol. Like they have no place in my life. It's not part of my value system. It doesn't help me. How does that help me on this journey? Yeah. It doesn't help me whatsoever. And so that's how it worked for me, but it was strictly focusing on the behaviors and the underlying ideas.
So again, behaviors over substances.
100%,
and that's like what
man.
really shifted for you. Is instead of focusing on that. And I think that's important to actually recognize. I don't feel like I've ever really connected that with you. You've probably said it a million times, but you've just said it in a way that like really clicked for me. And it's how I help people even in these situations. Like, don't focus on the alcohol. Don't focus on the substance. Don't tell them they can't drink. Don't set your boundaries around that. It's about the behaviors. It's about the lying. It's about the inconsistency. It's about not showing up. It's about the abandonment and the neglect. That's what's bothering you. And once you start shifting that focus, things become more clear and it's easier for you to stand up for yourself and it's easier for you to set boundaries and it's easier for you to see things more clearly,
right?
Because you're focusing on the thing that actually affects you. I feel like the recovery world and even just society in general just focuses so much on this substance and blames the substance and blames the disease on all these problems that it keeps people in a victim mindset. And they think that if they think that their partner, if they get sober, everything will be okay. When we really need to shift it of like, hey, do you want to be a better person? Like, do you just want to be a better man? Let's work on that. Let's put the drinking and stuff aside. Yes, I do think that those things have to come away first.
And that's where I think a lot of the insistence on the substance comes from. Absolutely.
Because then you can't work on the other things.
Right.
But you kind of just said that you worked on the other things before you really worked on the substance.
Yeah,
it was your perspective.
Probably my first 5 years in being sober and like really trying to be a better person, I focused on like three main tenets. And one of them was dishonesty. The other one was control. And the other one was selfishness. Those three things are really what drove the shittiest version of me. It was dishonesty and lying. It was lying so that you wouldn't be on to me, so I could get away with things. It's control. And that came up in a million different ways in my life. Controlling narratives, controlling perceptions, controlling the way that other people behave and act, to make sure that I felt okay. And that all kind of underlying a lot of this stuff is selfishness. I was fucking selfish. And that had nothing to do with my drinking or not. I was selfish. I was a very selfish person. I was self-centered. I was always thinking about me, how I was going to be affected. It didn't matter what was going on. Like even early in sobriety, this shit affected me. I remember when our kids were little, and like when you have kids, like and you're a parent, you come second now and your kids come first. And when our kids would be involved in stuff and they would have to like go, like we'd sign them up for things. And like your Saturday gets eaten up with things with the kids. Like on the inside, I'm pouting like a little baby about it.
And on the outside.
And on the outside. Fair. I'm not going to argue with you about it.
This was actually a struggle of ours for a long period of time.
Yeah, it's like, but that was about selfishness. I was sober as anyone else in the entire world. I was sober as a newborn, and I still had trouble with this. You know,
those were your value. That was based on like it was rooted in you. It was part of your value system, like the selfishness. It was part of how you survived when you were younger, right?
Exactly.
So then even after the substance was removed and these things still came out. The behavior still came out when you were sober, but you realized, you know what, I need to work on that, because this was a problem for me. Like I was like, what are you doing? Like these kids, we need to put them first and be able to have these activities and allow that. So it was just one of those little pieces of behaviors where someone would be like, well, that's not really that deep, or that's not that big of a deal. But it is for me, because for my values, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure my kids are involved, because I know that if they're not involved, that's going to cause more issues down the line.
Yeah, and
because of what you dealt with when you were younger.
Yeah, and it extends beyond kids too. This came into play with me and you. Valentine's Day was always a really special holiday to you. Yeah. Always has been. You always loved it. And my thesis at some point was, it's a greeting card holiday. This is bullshit. This is just for guys that don't show up in their marriages, which I wasn't, ironically. And they just show up one day with flowers and a card, and we're supposed to all play along with this? Like, no, it's bullshit. And I've stood on that hill for a long time. And that's my selfishness. That's my control. That's me trying to influence the world and your feelings by getting you to go along with me. I'm trying to control your perception. I'm trying to change your mind. It's all about me though, because I didn't feel like I had to stoop to the level to participate. When the non-selfish version of me now looks at that like it's something that's incredibly important to her. And it took years and years and years and years of constantly challenging those thoughts, reframing them, behaving differently, even if I didn't feel like I should have, because that's my beliefs and ideas inside of me that I came with, my stock ideas were telling me. And now I literally had to train myself not to be selfish, not to be controlling, not to only look at what I'm getting out of something. And that took years into sobriety, y'all, like years into sobriety. And so when I was saying mean, hateful shit when I was drunk or high or anything else in those years that I was using, it was coming from the same place. It was coming from the same data, from the same ideas. It all originated from that same pool of shit that is me. And you can't pull the two apart. I know as much as we would like to, because it simplifies it, right? And it gives you hope that like things can get better. And I want to be clear that they can. It's just not going to be that simple. It's just not. I wish it were that simple. Shit, man, that would be the greatest thing ever. Yeah. I mean, I just stop drinking and everything fixes itself. Like, cool.
Wouldn't that be great?
But I think that there are also some people, and this is, again, the nuance of the conversation. There's some people that get rather violent when they drink. And most of the time, they're not that way. They're docile. They're pretty chill people. But when they drink, they get violent. Alcohol affects everyone a little bit differently. And so you can look at them and say, well, that's not them, you know? I would argue in some way, shape, or form it is. And underneath it all, there's some anger living inside of them. There's something going on down there that brings this shit to it allows it to come to the surface, right? But it's boiling in there.
Yeah, because think about healthy drinkers, you know, like normies or whatnot.
People that
can have a normal relationship. Okay. And they don't do those things when they drink, you know, because they have a pretty healthy value system, and they have, you know, they're able to, regulate their emotions regularly. They have a healthy outlook on things, and they're pretty constant with like just who they are. They know who they are in a way. They don't act like that, you know? So you can't blame the substance whenever it's like that. You have to actually look at the person, and their value system is skewed, and it doesn't it probably doesn't align with yours. And you can't make them change that.
No,
they
you
have
can't.
to want to be able to change that.
I mean, and I've noticed this, and I don't believe in absolutes really, but it seems to me like the guys that get the angriest, like the angry drunks, oftentimes are the quiet people sober. And what I've come to know about quiet people in general is that they're not quiet because they don't have thoughts or beliefs. They're just quiet because they're really good at filtering those things, or they have anxiety around speaking up or anything else. They're really good at blending in, but those doesn't mean they don't have thoughts or beliefs. And so it's really hard to look at someone who's like normally super calm and chill, and when they drink, they become like fucking, it's like Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
Stuff's in there. It's just you're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it. Yeah, correct. This is interesting. This took a turn.
Yeah. Going down memory lane and like I'll volunteer myself. I will always volunteer myself before I volunteer others' experiences. But that's just something I've noticed is that, like there were so many things about me and the way I was and the way I behaved that had nothing to do with the substances involved. Like those things made it easier,
Yeah.
And in some ways they even masked it sometimes. Like sometimes it has the opposite effect in people. A lot of times when I was sober, I was like a total asshole and I was discontent. I was angry. And then when I was high, I was actually a little more tolerable. I was a little easier to get along
more
with.
fun, more chill.
Yeah. Because I had an outlet for how to deal with all that stuff that was swimming around my head that I didn't know what to do with.
Yeah. My issues with you were mostly your come downs from what, if I were to
getting back to sober usually was like the worst thing in the world for me. When I was high, I could handle life. When I was drunk, I could handle life. When I was sober, I was fucking miserable. So I wasn't really like the angry type drunk.
No. I mean, you did get that way towards the end. I think towards the end when you were really like amping up, the substances, when you were taking a lot more.
There were times emotionally going through so much at that time because I had just stuffed all that shit down for so long.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a couple of incidences because I drank with you too. We had a good time. We had a really good time back in the day, but there were times when I was like, oh, whoa, he like really lashed out at me.
Oh, there was a time we were, it was after
the World Series, or not World Series, but it was after a
the
playoff
Texas
game.
Rangers had made the playoffs.
Yes. We might have discussed this before.
Happy playoff baseball season to all that celebrate. I'm sitting here wearing my Red Sox shirt, which by the time this comes out, hopefully we're up 1-0. We'll see. Anyway. We were at a bar, something like that. And it was the dumbest fight ever, but we'll walk you through it. I thought we should have called an Uber because I was shit-faced. I was so drunk.
Yes.
And you weren't.
I had stopped drinking like an hour or two before.
And in my mind, I thought I was like doing the responsible thing. And so I called an Uber and you were like, why'd you call? Like, I'm going to drive us home. Like, I've only had like a drink or two drinks. And I got really livid with the way it was handled for whatever reason, being drunk. But it was about control in that moment because you weren't doing what I was doing. You were making me look stupid, like less of a man. And my beliefs and ideas were that you need to, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Do what I tell you to do.
Like obey or be obedient in some way. And like it came out in that way. And I said some really ugly things in front of our friends and family. And it was disgusting. And then the next morning, I'm apologizing for this shit, but I wasn't really that sorry. I was sorry that I got caught. I was sorry that I made it so public, but it wasn't like I changed my mind about the belief that drove it. I still believed myself to be correct in that. I'm sorry that it came out that way. And that's what a lot of people will say is like, I'm sorry it came out that way, but you're not sorry it came out. You're not sorry for holding the belief or the idea, which is where the real crux of the problem lives.
Right.
It's down there in those beliefs, man.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't matter if you meant it or not. It impacted me. I was very embarrassed by that situation. Yeah. I remember the face of the people around me looking at me like, did that really just happen? Like it was very out of character for you. But I think that's when I recognized, things are really going downhill. Like, I wonder if this is too much. Like,
I was
something
in rehab
was changing.
6 months later.
No, it was longer than that.
It was October.
Were we married already?
Yeah, it was October.
Okay. We've talked about the timeline and I don't remember specifically, but it was just like, oh my gosh, did this really just happen? But either way, the impact was the same and it was like, it was hurtful. It was like, and he said that he meant it, but.
Did you believe me when I said I didn't mean it? Do you remember the fight the next morning? Because we got into a fight again the next morning.
I know we got in a fight the next morning. I feel like this was the night that you slept in the car.
I don't even remember.
Or stayed in the car for a long time. I don't know. A lot of things. That was a long time ago. This was like 13, 14 years ago. So it's kind of hard to remember. But it was a significant occurrence within our relationship. No, I don't. In my gut, no, I don't think I believed you because it was always like that. It was the cycle. The cycle of the toxic cycle where it's like we blow up, you apologize. I was at a point at that point where I was like, I don't really believe him at this point. Like, I'm kind of annoyed with you and I need to do something about this because I'm pissed off.
So for every time that I had lost my shit or said something ugly and then I go back to apologize the next morning, where is your head at when I'm doing that kind of stuff?
I'm very confused. I'm really confused because I'm like, okay, does he mean it? But I mean, at first you're like, okay, I believe him. You know, people mess up. You know, you have this mentality of like, okay, we're young. People do bad things. At least he apologized for it. Let's move on. But it was the same pattern over and over and over again. And it got to where I felt very, very invalidated and I felt very unheard. And I felt like our relationship wasn't equal. Like it just felt really, it just was confusing. It was super confusing at that time. I actually talk about this in our program, which I'm going to talk about real quick. There is a toxic cycle that we go through where it's like the love bomb, you fight, you have a love bombing situation and it just continues, but it gets worse over time. It's in our first or second module. I don't remember specifically, but we talk about the relationship dynamics, trauma bonds. Matt has a module about addiction and then abuse. We talk about self-care, self-awareness, boundaries. Should you stay or should you go? We have resources in there. We have a weekly call on Wednesdays with Matt and or me. And then other people going through a similar thing. And we also have a licensed therapist on board. He is the clinical architect of the program. You can go to independentlystrong.com. We do not have the code anymore. I keep forgetting that I'm scared I'm gonna say it. And it's like, wait, no, we just dropped it. Yeah, we dropped it to the price of the coupon. With the coupon. Yeah. So it's the same price for everybody now. And I don't know if I'm missing anything, but we do talk about this toxic cycle that Matt and I were just explaining. And I talk about a specific situation that we had when I was pregnant, and how it felt. And a lot of people relate to it because you go through these cycles and then it's hard to pick up on the patterns. And then you become really confused because you're like, oh, they're doing so well. They're apologizing, but then they do it again and it gets worse over time. And then you're completely confused because you're like, okay, I'm minimizing this stuff now, even though they tell me I'm catastrophizing it. And it just makes you it just makes you feel lost and confused and you don't know what to do about anything anymore.
Yeah, man. It's so confusing. Reason behind a lot of it is because you saw the best in me. You saw those moments of me where you could see me behaving or acting a certain way in those lucid moments where I was being kind and selfless. Because it's not like it's all the time. And I think that's what really gets with people. And that's what really messes them up is that you offer these glimpses of this version that you could be. And then you have this inconsistency and the sort of like this cognitive dissonance between this other version that you get to see sometimes.
Right.
And we so badly want to dismiss those bad times in favor of the good times, which is kind of interesting because as humans, we generally have a negativity bias. But when it comes to love and emotion, it gets overridden.
It does.
It's so powerful that it completely overrides it, where we will favor the optimistic point of view, which is wild because if you think about anything else in your life, you're generally just worried about like you're a pessimist, like you're thinking about worst case scenario, like you're an overthinker, you're ruminating, you're catastrophizing, and like that. These are really common cognitive distortions. But when it comes to this, we generally lay down our guard in favor of this love story that we tell ourselves. And so when someone has berated you or if they've said some really ugly things to you or someone you love, like your children, if they've mistreated the animals, like whatever it is, you've got to really put that in perspective because whether or not you have forgiven them, whether or not you have written it off or explained it in some way through mental gymnastics and you've chosen to throw that outlier out, I think that what we have to understand is that it's still affecting us, right? If someone drops a glass on your foot and it breaks your toe and it was an accident, does it mean your toe is any less broken? No. And I'm not saying that when it comes to mentally, like the stories we tell ourselves don't have relevance because they do, but over time, do this enough and it will change you, whether or not you want it to or not. It's going to affect you. It's going to affect the way you respond. It's going to affect the way that you feel. It's going to affect the way that you raise your children. It's going to show up in a million different ways. And we have this thought. We always have this thought. Did they really mean it? Like, did I really mean the things that I'd said?
Well, it doesn't matter. In my brain. That's
where I'm
really
at with it
just
too.
that's really the whole basis of this is that it doesn't matter if they meant it or not. It is harmful to a spouse. It doesn't matter if it was under the influence. It doesn't matter if they have trauma. It doesn't matter any of that. The words are still hurtful and it is still harmful. So it's not the intention that matters. It's the fact that it does happen, that it does hurt you. That's what matters. That's why I didn't, care about addiction whenever you were going through stuff or like focus on that. It was all about your behaviors. Are you treating me a certain way? Okay, well, that's not acceptable. I don't care if you meant it or not. Like it is still impacting me.
Yeah. And also the distinction between a one-off, someone saying something really hurtful, because everyone will do this at some point in their life. And abuse it's a chronic pattern of that.
It's a pattern
of mistreating and devaluing. It's a pattern, right? There's a pattern, as we will get into here in a moment, red flags and patterns to notice, like how do you pick up on this stuff? But one last word on impact and intent was, regardless if someone meant what they said, regardless of how you choose to rectify that in your mind and make sense of it or write it off or whatever you decide to do, whether they meant it, whether they didn't, why we keep ruminating on this, I think that you have to ask yourself the question, can I feel safe with this? Can I live with this? Can I live with it? That's the question you have to ask, not did they mean it? Was this true? If they really meant that, like, just can you live with it? That's the most important thing. Is it putting you in a situation that's become unsafe? That's the question you've got to ask yourself, regardless of the why behind it all or the true or false. It's can you live with it?
Yeah. And I think a hard part about it too is that when people do say really hurtful things, we kind of internalize it too. And we're like, okay, did they really mean, like, is it true what they said? They may have meant it in their mind, how they feel about it or what they say, but it doesn't make it true for you. Like, let's, if they call you controlling, like a controlling bitch, does that mean that you're a controlling bitch? No, but they may feel that way. That's the part that sucks. But what I want people to understand is that it doesn't mean that it's true. So that's where we get like really warped and wrapped around. It's like, oh my gosh, am I really a controlling bitch? Like, what do I need to do to change that? You're probably not. You're probably just asking for somebody to step up. So you have to look at the reality of the situation with that.
Yeah, man. Empathetic, kind, caring people are generally going to receive those messages and take them straight to heart. And they're going to look at oh my God, I caused this. I am all these things. And the abusive people get away with it. You've made their life easier. You've made their abuse more possible whenever we take that and we internalize it. It's like, you're going to change and really you didn't need to.
Right.
I'm not saying that people don't need to change. They do. But in abusive situations, like you can actually make the problem worse by listening to that kind of stuff.
Right. Like taking it to heart and actually trying to like do what they ask. But either way, you're never going to make them happy. Let's be real about that. Like you can sit there and change all the things based on what they tell you to do, and it's never going to be good enough.
As long as you have thoughts and opinions, they're going to be unhappy.
They're going to be unhappy. Yeah. So let's talk about the red flags and the patterns to notice. So if the same accusations, if they're doing the same thing consistently, the insults, the resentments, or whatever it is, even like when they're drunk, it's likely what they truly believe.
Yeah. And this can be comments about your weight or your appearance. This can be comments about their commitment to you and or that they could go get somebody else in a heartbeat. And a lot of the nasty stuff like that. If it's a theme, if it keeps popping up, any example of those, think of the one that maybe it's in your life that's come up quite often, is likely stemming from a true belief.
But again, it doesn't mean that it's true.
This is their perception.
Their perception. Yeah. And then there's a lot of the minimization. As you were talking earlier, when you would tell me that you were sorry or whatever the next day, typically, like you said, though, you would apologize, but it wasn't really a real apology. Your apology was so crazy.
Manipulative, controlling, selfish people are very, very, very good at what we do.
Yes.
And what I mean by that was that when I would apologize, I wasn't really apologizing. I was explaining, or I was providing context, so that what I'm saying in a roundabout way is that you have no right to be mad. You have no right to be mad with me. You have no right to be upset. To the degree that you're upset, it's to the degree that you're seeing the situation incorrectly, or that you perceived it wrong. And I can't help that you perceived it that way. It's not how I meant it, and that's usually what I would do. And that's what manipulators do. It's what abusive people do. And what it really is, it's a refusal to own your part in this. It's a refusal to own and take responsibility.
To take responsibility.
You're not taking responsibility for the hurtful thing that came out of your mouth and from where it stemmed from. Because if that's true, then you got much bigger problems that you gotta that you got to face, right? So it's easier just to convince someone else they're crazy.
Yeah. So if somebody is constantly blaming the substance, or they're saying I was drunk, I didn't mean it, that is a red flag in itself, because they're still not taking responsibility for the impact that it had on you and what they said to you. So take that. Just take it as a red flag is all I'm going to say. Like, that's something that needs to be addressed, and they are not willing to actually understand or care about how their actions or behavior has impacted you as a spouse.
Yeah. All right. What else? Red flags.
You kind of said this earlier, where there's different selves, where we were both talking about it,
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah. Like if sober behavior is respectful, but drunk behavior is consistently cruel, the drunk self may be giving you a preview of unspoken truths, which is what we just went through. How the drunk person is like, what they're saying, there's some truth to that. So instead of looking at people from a sober way, shift it. Look at them when they're drunk, and that's the true colors coming out. That's what you're dealing with. And when they get sober, that's the shit that they have to work on for a long period of time. If they get sober, it's literally their values that are in them. Yeah, they're just amplified.
Just because someone's quiet doesn't mean that they're a sweet person. I think that we can oftentimes assume what someone's thinking if they're just a quiet person. And oftentimes we're going to attribute the best attributes to them, right? But you don't really know what's going on underneath that. If they're showing up like this every time they're drinking, something's up down there. There's something going on inside that they're not really revealing. There's some darkness inside of them that comes to light.
Yeah. And I don't like the denial of the next day of them saying of like, oh, I was drunk. I don't remember that. Like, I don't remember that. And it's like, okay, that's gaslighting too, because it's like saying that your experience isn't real just because they don't remember it. They still need to own their shit. Or if you know that you're doing things when you're getting blackout drunk, don't drink so heavily. Don't drink. Like, that that's a problem.
Yeah.
They're still using it as an excuse to get away with shitty behavior.
And I know that relationships aren't the law, but the law doesn't look at things like this. Like if you get into an accident, blackout drunk, and you hurt somebody, you're going to jail.
You're being held accountable.
Your memory is not relevant to the crime. Your memory and recollection of events is not relevant to the facts of what transpired. If you've hurt somebody. So my memory is not required for you to feel hurt by something. And I didn't get blackout too much. It was usually whenever I mixed benzos and alcohol that I would black out. That was usually like the blackout recipe.
Yeah, those are mind erasers.
It's just like, you don't remember anything. I could have said anything, but at the same time, like, I still said it, regardless if I remember it or not. I said it.
Yeah, I don't remember having those incidences with you personally.
We didn't have too many of them, but they're very common for other people.
Yeah, I know they are. I see it a lot. I just want you to understand that it's not an excuse. If they don't remember it, it's not an excuse for them not to take accountability. I mean, they need to do better. Like, change your ways, obviously, if that's a problem.
Yeah, that's what's always like. This is the fascinating thing about addiction is that a lot of times, like, the passes we want to give people, it's like, well, they only treat me that way when they drink. And so if we know that drinking causes harm to someone that we love or disrespect to people that we love or puts them in danger, why are we entertaining the idea of drinking unless it's a serious problem,
Right.
And like those same people won't acknowledge that it's a serious problem.
Right.
But it's like, if you ask them, like, would you hurt your wife? No. Well, when you drink, you put yourself in positions to do that. Well, I'm not giving up my drinking. Okay. So you're in a roundabout way saying that you're totally cool hurting your wife. And that's the truth.
Exactly.
We can't split the two apart.
It's sad truth.
It's just the truth, man.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so we're here to empower spouses. Like, that's part of our mission. We validate, educate, empower, and help you on your recovery journey. So I just kind of want to share, like, we try to decode this stuff so much on like if what they're saying is true or if it's real or whatever. And I'd like you to shift your perspective on whether the relationship feels safe, if it feels respectful, or if it aligns with your values. Doesn't matter about the substance. It doesn't matter about any of that. It's like, what are they saying? Is it impacting you? How does it affect you and your relationship? That's a perspective that we need to start shifting instead of looking at the substance constantly. And instead of asking, like, was it true? Ask, is the behavior acceptable to me? Again, we're all about the behaviors. What does this pattern tell me about the relationship's future? What do I need to feel safe and respected? These are the questions you can ask yourself instead of like, if is what they're saying true when they're under the influence? Doesn't matter. The impact is what matters, and how it is affecting you in your life.
The impact is truly what matters. Like man, we can look at all these what ifs and say, well, what if they didn't do this and things would be perfect? Let's stop thinking about what if and think about what is. And what is the reality that this causes harm and it's unacceptable behavior, period. End of story. No more conversation or discussion about it. Addiction provides context. It does not provide excuses. So badly, we want to just say it's all the alcohol. And I've heard creators say this, like creators that talk to couples and everything else. And, they have a story and it's like, so badly, you'd like to just say, that was all just the alcohol. That was the alcohol. You can't put that on me. And I think it's a really convenient way to sort of bypass the important work that is rebuilding trust and intimacy and change and behavior change. Because if I were to sit here in front of you and say, you can't hold me responsible for those things, I'm still controlling the narrative. I'm still controlling the dynamic. And if I've convinced you in so many ways, or other people have convinced you in so many ways to drop it, does it ever actually go away?
No, it
just
gets
because
worse.
we say it does doesn't mean it actually goes away. And it shows up in different ways. It will come out. Emotions buried alive never die. So we can sit here and pretend like this shit isn't as meaning and deep as it is, but it is. Like, you can sit here and say it's not, but it's still going to show up in your life. And I'll challenge anyone on that all day, every day, to have a debate about that. As much as you want to say it's just the substance, you can't. And that's what recovery was about for me and for us. I shouldn't just say me, but for us, it was about acknowledging that my behaviors in their totality were a representation of me, my beliefs, my ideas. I could say in moments that they were exacerbated by a substance. I could say that sometimes they were driven by the desire for a substance or withdrawal or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, my behaviors were fucked and my beliefs and my attitudes were fucked. And I have yet to meet anyone who's recovered that would say otherwise. And when I say recovered, I mean like you've really addressed the behaviors.
Doing the real
But
deal.
I've met shitloads of people that would claim that they're recovered and they've never really addressed that shit because they've been able to sort of wall off a part of their mind where they put that person in a box and just said, we don't talk about him. We don't deal with him. That's an old me. End of story. If you never address this stuff, it's going to come back up in other ways. It's going to come back up in your recovery. You will still be a manipulator. You'll just be a much more crafty one because you've gotten better at it because you've got all your faculties about you.
Damn, call him out, babe.
Well, like Bancroft talks about this. He was on a podcast called
Why I Stayed.
Why I Stayed? I think it's what it is. It's a really, really good podcast.
I think her name is Grace Stewart.
Grace Stewart, yeah. Check out her episode with Lenny Bancroft. But he talks about how like 12-step programs and addiction programs sometimes can make abusers just better abusers because they've got their faculties about them now. And now they have this weapon to use against their loved ones that you cannot hold me responsible. They become much better at the language of recovery and therapy and things like that. And they sort of weaponize it against you. And people do this. I'm not saying everyone, but there are a non-zero number of people out there that are doing this. And so you should be aware of it. If anything, that's why our show exists, for education to some degree. And it's something that I have come across personally in people, where I've met people that were sober longer than me. And I'm like, that guy's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
Like, straight up.
Right.
Like, he's dangerous.
Exactly. Dangerous.
And he's got everyone fooled.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
yes, because they're very good at what they do. And sometimes the program can make them weaponize it even more. And you have to understand the red flags. And I think that one of the red flags is like kind of what you said. Actually, this would be a green flag. If they're like willing to change, it's really them going in, wanting to change the behaviors and not necessarily remove the substance.
Yeah.
I think it's them actually wanting to be a different person and actually really wanting to do the deal. The red flag would be them just going in and like, oh, I'm sober, everything's good. I'm just going to take away the alcohol or the substance and everything will be fine. Instead of actually wanting to dig into their belief system and their values and who they are as a person and how they actually impact others with their behaviors. I think that's a red flag.
It is. I can only speak for myself. I can only imagine other people feel this way though. There's no better feeling than being able to lay your head down on the pillow knowing that like you were a good person that day. That you contributed to other people, you helped people around you, that you were honest. There's no better feeling than that. And like, those are the things that in recovery, you've really got to focus on. If we're going to be better people, well, let me back up for a second. I had been more times in my life I can count. I had been sober, but not happy. and I had been happy, but not sober. I'd never been able to be happy and sober because I was never able to really address those behaviors. The substances for me made it a lot easier to forget about those behaviors. It kind of bypassed them. It made them more manageable, those ideas, those beliefs. But in order to really become who I am today, I had to look at myself sober and like admit some really difficult truths about myself. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, is to be able to look at themselves and say like, you've got some pretty fucked up beliefs. Like you're controlling and abusive and this stuff isn't right. And at the same time, have compassion for yourself to say that like, I didn't plan on this and I can fix this. Like
yes,
whatever happened in my environment when I was young led to me being here. And like, I can't go back and change that. I can't go back and change the things that I put you through or the things I did to other people, but I can love myself and have compassion for myself enough to say, we don't have to be this person anymore. Yep. But it takes an admission. And I think a lot of people really struggle with that one. And that's sort of like that guilt and shame conversation. But
I talked about that in my last page's perspective, by the way, the power of change and how guilt and shame actually fuels us into making changes that are necessary for us.
It does, man. For as much as we want to like shield people from shame,
don't need to
like
shield.
I felt shame in the way that I'd behaved and I wanted to run away from that shame feeling. The only way I was going to do that in my mind was to fix it. That's the only way I could live with myself, was if I was able to fix it and sort of rewrite that narrative in the right way. But it came from wanting to be a better person. It came from wanting to change my ideas about equality and about women and about power dynamics and about selfishness and control and
showing up as a dad,
dishonesty. Yeah. Like all that stuff that is what recovery was for me. It was dealing with that shit. The result of dealing with that shit was that like, I don't feel like I need to put drugs and alcohol in my body anymore.
Yeah.
I don't. And it's not like, it wasn't like it was that it never crosses my mind anymore. I think a lot of people have that feeling too. It's like, cause I've heard those stories where it's like, the thought has never crossed my mind again. I call bullshit. It's going to cross your mind. Yeah. You're just going to be able to reason, ration through it. And you're going to have some tools, whether that's spirituality or cognitive based tools that prevent you from going back there. Like I've told more people than I can count, like, I don't care if you drink. Like, dude, if that's what you want to do, go do it. Just don't lie to yourself. Just know that it will end up like it has every other time. Yep. That's the most likely outcome here. If we're just looking at Occam's razor, right? The simplest solution is usually the outcome. I think it comes true with probabilities too. What does the pattern say? You're probably going to do it again. So changing those behaviors, and finish this off, is just changing the behaviors led me to a place where I didn't feel like I needed to cover with anything. I was really too focused on dealing with me. And then once I started to truly love me again, and I was proud of the person I was, became a hell of a lot easier to not stick something in your body to mask it.
Yeah, true.
Yep, I know you have to pee.
I do.
So we're going to get going.
You know me well.
You start bouncing and spinning in a chair.
And I start spinning my chair.
And then you're just like, all right, let's finish this up.
I'm like, are you going to stop talking now? It's good shit. I love you.
Not offended, not in the slightest. But
I hope this was helpful. Remember to just focus on the behaviors. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's the impact that matters. Intentions don't matter. Patterns matter. And your story and your life matters.
Yeah. So whether it's exaggerated truth or distorted meaning or like suppressed resentment coming out, I think that the real truth here is that the harm is real, regardless of anything else. And alcohol didn't create it. It simply revealed what was already there. This stuff was down inside. And that's a tough realization to come to, but it's okay. Like you don't need to play detective with their words. You don't need to dissect them and go through it and figure out what's true, what's false. I think you just need to decide what behaviors you will and will not live with. That's the most important thing when it comes to keeping yourself safe. And patterns don't lie, man. Patterns don't lie.
Start saying safey.
Drunk or sober, patterns don't lie.
Facts.
You have to pay attention to that as well. So sending you off with love for the week. I wish there were something we could do or say that would just make it click for you, but maybe it's just going to be a million conversations like this over a long period of time that kind of gets you to that point. I think that what I would want more than anything is for our listeners to be safe, and our listeners put themselves in safe situations, and children in safe situations. And if you're someone like me, to really recognize and repair the right way, not by just ignoring it.
Yeah.
So that's all we got.
Yep.
Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
We'll see y'all.
Bye.